For 8 years, scientists worked towards the goal of repeating 193 experiments from 53 high-impact papers in cancer biology. However, these scientists were able to repeat only 50 experiments of the 193 from 23 papers of the 53. There were multiple reasons for this disappointing result. First, data required to reproduce these experiments was publicly accessible for just 4 of the 193 experiments. Moreover, despite contacting the authors of the original papers, the scientists were unable to obtain this data for 68% of the experiments. Second, none of the 193 experiments were described in sufficient detail in the original paper to enable the scientists to design protocols to repeat the experiments. Thus, the scientists sought clarifications with the original authors. Well, for 32 of the experiments, the authors didn't even reply to the request. Third, once experimental work started, 67% of the peer-reviewed protocols required modifications to complete the research, and just 41% of those modifications could be implemented. Hi everyone, this is Dr. Giordano Scarciotti, and today we are tackling a topic that has been a growing concern in the scientific community. We are talking about the reproducibility crisis in science. If you have ever wondered why some studies that make headlines later turn out to be unreliable, or why some well-established findings come under scrutiny, then this video is for you. The reproducibility crisis refers to the troubling fact that a significant number of scientific studies across various fields cannot be replicated or reproduced by other researchers. This has serious implications for the reliability of research, and today we're going to explore what this means, which fields are most affected, why it's happening, and what's being done to address it. Let's start by defining what we mean by reproducibility. In science, reproducibility refers to the ability of researchers to obtain the same results using the same methods and the same data as the original study. When a study is reproducible, it means that independent researchers can follow the same procedures and achieve the same results, which is crucial for verifying the validity of findings. The reproducibility crisis is the growing realization that many scientific studies, particularly in the fields like psychology, medicine, and economics, are not reproducible. In other words, when other researchers try to replicate these studies, they often fail to get the same results. This raises serious questions about the reliability and validity of those original findings. While the reproducibility crisis affects many areas of science, some fields have been hit particularly hard. Psychology is perhaps the most well-known example, where complex human behaviors and cognitive processes can be difficult to measure and replicate. For example, in a large-scale project known as the Reproducibility Project Psychology, researchers attempted to replicate 100 psychology studies published in top journals. Now, of these 100 studies, 97 of these studies claimed a significant effect in some way. But the reproducibility project was able to show a significant effect only in 36% of these studies. In medicine, the stakes are even higher. When studies that inform medical treatment or drug development can be reproduced, it undermines our confidence in those treatments and can even lead to harmful consequences. For instance, if a drug is developed based on findings that later turn out to be reproducible, it could result in ineffective or even dangerous treatments being administered to patients. And in fact, the data summarized at the beginning of this video came from a study called the Reproducibility Project Cancer Biology, so it's a medicine study. Economics is another field where reproducibility issues have surfaced. Economic models often rely on complex datasets and assumptions that can vary significantly depending on the context. If these models can't be replicated, it raises concerns about the reliability of economic predictions and policies based on these models. So what's causing this crisis? There are several factors at play, and understanding them is key to addressing the problem. First, there is the issue of publication bias. This refers to the tendency of journals to publish studies with positive or novel results, while studies that find no effect or fail to replicate previous findings are often left unpublished. This creates a skewed view of the scientific literature where positive results are overrepresented. You may struggle to get that study published because journals often give priority to exciting results. This leads to a bias in the literature, where only the most striking, but not necessarily the most reliable, findings see the light of day. Related to this is the pressure to publish. In academia, researchers are often judged by the quantity and impact of their publications. This is called the publish or perish culture and can lead to cutting corners such as p-hacking. P-hacking involves testing multiple hypotheses using a single dataset by searching in an exhaustive manner for a combination of variables that might show a correlation. For instance, this example produced through a bot operated by Tyler Vigen shows a close link between the number of letters of the best word in a spelling bee competition and the number of people in the US killed by venomous spiders. This obviously is a coincidence, and the apparent correlation is caused simply by testing a lot of many different data patterns until you find one that shows close resemblance. The result of p-hacking is a proliferation of studies that may look convincing on the surface, but lack the robustness needed for replication. Another issue is the use of small sample sizes and studies with low statistical power. Statistical power refers to the probability that a study will detect an effect if there is one. Small studies with low power are more likely to produce false positives, that is, they may find a significant effect purely by chance, which other researchers then cannot replicate. This partially explains why psychology is particularly affected. Small sample sizes are particularly problematic in fields like psychology because there is a large variability between individuals. If a study is based on a small group of participants, the results may not generalize well to the broader population. Finally, there is the issue of transparency and data sharing. For a study to be truly reproducible, other researchers need to access the original data and methods. Unfortunately, not all researchers make their data or methods publicly available, whether due to privacy concern, IP reasons, or simply because the data is not well organized in the first place. When data and methods are not shared, it becomes nearly impossible for others to verify or replicate the findings, which further contributes to the reproducibility crisis. Fortunately, the scientific community is becoming increasingly aware of these issues, and there are several efforts and initiatives underway to address this crisis. One major development is the rise of open science initiatives. Open science promotes transparency by encouraging researchers to share their data, methods, and even pre-register their studies. Pre-registration involves specifying the study's hypothesis, methods, and analysis plan before the data is collected. This helps preventing practices like p-hacking because it holds researchers accountable to their original plan. Essentially, they cannot just looking for random patterns. Platforms like Open Science Framework and journals that require data sharing as a condition of publication are leading the way in this movement. By making research more transparent, these initiatives help ensure that findings are more reliable and easier to replicate. Another promising approach is the use of registered reports. In this model, researchers submit their study plan to a journal before they conduct the research. The study is then peer-reviewed based on the quality of the methodology, not the results, which are not yet available. If the methodology is sound, the journal commits to publish the study regardless of the outcome. This reduces the pressure to produce positive or novel results and encourages more rigorous research practices. Some journals have already adopted this model and it's gaining traction as a way to combat publication bias. Then we have large-scale replication projects, which are playing a key role in addressing the reproducibility crisis. These projects involve teams of researchers which are attempting to replicate a wide range of studies to assess their reliability. The reproducibility project Psychology, which I mentioned earlier, is one of such examples, and similar efforts are underway in other fields, like for instance in medicine, as I mentioned the cancer biology version of this study. By systematically testing the reproducibility of published findings, these projects help identify which areas of research are most robust and which need further scrutiny. Improving research training is another crucial step. Many of the issues contributing to the reproducibility crisis stem from a lack of training in proper research methods and statistical analysis. By enhancing education in these areas, particularly for early career researchers, we can help ensure that the next generation of scientists is better equipped to conduct reproducible research. Several universities and organizations are now offering courses and workshops focused on reproducibility, open science, and robust research practices. These initiatives are essential for fostering a culture of rigor and transparency in science. So where does this leave us? Well, the reproducibility crisis is undoubtedly a significant challenge for science, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to improve the way we conduct, report, and evaluate research. By embracing open science, improving training, and fostering a culture of transparency and rigor, we can enhance the reliability of scientific findings and ensure that science continues to be a trustworthy source of knowledge. Remember, science is a self-correcting process. The fact that we are aware of the reproducibility crisis and taking steps to address it is a positive sign that science is doing what it's supposed to do, constantly improving and refining our understanding of the world. Thanks for watching. If you learned something new today, be sure to like, share and subscribe. And if you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Keep learning, stay critical and stay curious.